county deed restrictions on any of this?
All of the affordable housing projects, the 80% of the money will have affordable housing restrictions. There will be income restricted, there will be income qualifications, and they'll go for a certain time period.
And so this program is going to be better suited for some type of multi-housing and not to be used for single.
No, I wouldn't say that. There can still be single-family homes that are affordable housing qualified. I know that the city has done some of those with Habitat for Humanity. I don't know what the county has planned. I haven't seen a list of their projects. I don't know that they had a list of their projects. One of our original questions was, isn't the city going to get an opportunity to see these projects and weigh in on them before you provide the funding and go forward with them, county? Their response was they're going to all have to come through the city for your land use approval. So in theory, you should see all of these and know what they are. And if they get denied by the city, then they won't be able to spend the money on them. But they will include, covenants.
You said it can be found on the HCD website?
Mm-hmm. And that's where their guidelines for the program are, also on application requirements.
Great.
Just on clarification, where the part in here that says the county will be responsible for filing a quarterly report with the city manager. That means they're doing all of the money, all of the work, right? And they're just going to send the city manager and the city a list of what has transpired during that period of time.
That is correct.
Harlan?
This is definitely different than what we talked about before, because it was supposed to be for new housing. Now it's 20% for new housing, and the rest is for affordable housing. Right? Is that how I'm reading this? So it's like 80-20?
That is correct.
Okay. And I think what our whole thing is to avoid the situation we had with that property owner before. That was in here, house, and there's no way to get around it.
Not if they're all affordable units, no.
Now, would they come to us, or would they go to the county with their petitions?
They go to the county.
That's what I want to make sure.
They'll be the county's deed restrictions. They won't be the city's. And I might not have a full, complete understanding of what the county plans on doing, but my understanding is that the down payment assistance could be new or existing homes, but that the 80% is going to be new affordable housing.
And that is going to go to, like, people that are going to build apartments or some sort of affordable housing? They would have to apply for it?
Yes, it'd have to be an affordable housing program. I can't guess whether the balance is going to be multifamily or single family. If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say it's affordable housing because it would be multifamily because single family is more expensive to do.
If I could interject real quick, the terms have meanings. Let's be clear, this is not for affordable housing, it's for subsidized housing, because it's subsidizing the cost because the state legislature continues year after year to make housing in California less and less affordable with their mandates.
I won't argue with you about that at all. I was just saying that the definition that they'll use is affordable or low-income housing or moderate-income housing per the health and safety code. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's still subsidized.
It absolutely is, yes.
I did, council member, pull up the staff report from the July 14th meeting, and it does talk about the 80-20% split, and it was what the council discussed at that night.
Okay, I have no questions. The questions I had have already been addressed, so thank you for the staff report. With that, I'll entertain a motion on item 14A.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve item 14A. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Percival?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes, that passes unanimously. Item 14B is consideration of whether to fill the vacancy resulting from the resignation of Councilmember Bonnie Wright by appointment or by election. And we have a staff report, and we have a...
I'd be happy to take that one, Mayor. Really, I think the choices are pretty straightforward. The government code expressly provides the city council with two options. It can either appoint someone to replace Councilmember Wright for the remainder of her term. That would have to be done within 60 days. There is no specific procedure by which you have to do that, other than you'd have to do it in an open meeting unless you appointed a committee to do, go through some of the applicants. It would have to be an eligible voter from Ms. Wright's district. Or the law allows you to call for a special election within 60 days. We don't have the ability to do a special election because the law requires the special election to be 114 days away. The general election is already here, so if you want to fill the position by an election, in this odd case, you actually won't do a special election. You'll just say you're going to have that position filled by the general election. It won't be somebody filling her vacancy. It'll be the new term. And this is just an odd wrinkle where a special election would be in March, which is after her term expires, so you really can't fill it by a special election. But I think in this case you can fill it through the option of just allowing a new person to be elected at the general election for her district. Or you can appoint. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
Questions of our city attorney?
So with that being said, there's no legal requirement that we are mandated to appoint somebody to fill that seat for 2 months?
You are required to either appoint or fill it by a special election. And what we're suggesting to you in this case, you can certainly appoint, but we suggest that you take action to say you're going to fill it by having the position filled at the general election on November 3rd, which would actually put someone in the position sooner than if you had time to do a special election, and you can't because it's beyond the end of her term. So, no, I do not think you can be compelled to appoint somebody if the council doesn't want to in this case.
Right. Thank you for answering my question.
Linda?
There seems to be several cities in our same position, with Temecula having a vacant position, and Feasibility just had a resignation, so I'm okay with having the general election fill a position and let the people in that district decide.
So was that a motion?
Oh, that was a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation to fill the vacancy through the general election. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Percival?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. That passes unanimously. Item 14C is consideration of appointment of city council subcommittees, ad hoc committees, regional committee, and left vacant due to Bonnie Wright's resignation. So we have a recommendation. City council appoint representatives and alternates to the select boards, committees, and authorities as deemed appropriate. So do we staff report on this?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council. Due to the resignation of Bonnie Wright, there are some vacancies that have occurred on various regional committees, boards, and authorities. If you see on attachment 1 of the staff report, Ms. Wright served on 13 committees as either member or alternate. The recommendation is to fill those positions by appointment of city and council members. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Okay, any questions of the city clerk? If there aren't any, should we just work down the list? Okay.
Carly already appointed me to the Community Outreach Committee.
Okay, so Community Outreach Committee is going to be staffed by Mayor Pro Tem Krupa. Ramona Bowl Board.
I'm the primary on that, and whoever wants to volunteer to be the alternate until the end of the year. We're having Zoom meetings.
Yeah. Well, if no one else is interested, I'll be your alternate to that. And WRCOG, Executive Board and Administration and Finance Board.
You're the alternate.
Yeah, I
WRCOG.
was the alternate to WRCOG for Bonnie.
So you would slide into Executive Board. Nobody would go into Admin and Finance because that's appointed internally because
Yeah.
Bonnie was the past chair.
Yeah. So that would be a logical assumption unless somebody else wants to do that.
Since you're
As-
on
as
RCE or WCE, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
I think that would
Okay.
you being on RCOG, and if we need to appoint an alternate to that, Mike would love to do that.
Say what?
Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you love to be the alternate on WRCOG? There's only a few meetings left.
Or which?
Oh, it's the first Monday of the month right after RCA, so you'd be up there if there's live meetings.
It's all been Zoom, so.
There you go.
Yeah. You want to be the alternate for WRCOG for the rest of the year? Okay. And RCA. She was an alternate to that. You're the primary. So,
I'll do that if I've basically been on that in one form or the other for 10 years.
Yeah, they've just been Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
okay.
I've only missed one meeting, 2 meetings, I think.
Okay. So, Linda wants to be alternate to RCA. And SCAG, Energy and Environment.
Okay, SCAG we don't have to do anything about because that appointment comes through the WRCOG Executive Committee. So if they want to fill it, they can fill it. But
That would be on them.
we don't have to do anything about that.
Okay. WCE, yeah, Bonnie and I flipped roles on that a few months back. So I'm the primary, so we would need an alternate for WCE. And those have been Zoom meetings also, and I don't envision that that's going to change in the near future. Volunteers? There's actually one tomorrow. They're usually the second Wednesday of the month. One? I actually think we're probably fine because I'm able to make those Zoom meetings. I don't know that we need an alternate there for the rest of the year. Skate Park Committee.
Michael volunteered for that.
I did.
Okay. So Michael's on that one. And Florida Avenue SR 74 Ad Hoc Committee. That was,
Kind of a moot point, quite honestly, but
well, you can put me on that because I like to interact with Caltrans.
we all,
I'm curious to.
just in case, we've got to be able to just ring their little bell every so often.
I'm curious to know if there's any statistics to go with the new freshly painted share of the road with the bikes in the number 2 lane. If there's any statistics with vehicle versus bicycles
Yeah.
in the state of California with that, and how it's kept bicyclists safe or not.
Okay, and according to staff report, she also served as liaison to the Planning Commission meetings held on the third Tuesday of the month. Want to assume that role?
Anyone?
I listen in all on them all the time anyway, because I'm just naturally curious about what happens, so I can do that and report out. You do, wait a minute, what,
The first,
you do the first? Okay.
so you'll have the third, which is
I
next week.
remember that discussion,
Yeah.
sharing that. Okay, so I think we've addressed all of those appointments. Did you capture them all?
Yes, Mayor, I do have them written down.
There is one more on the Hemet Housing Authority. She
Oh,
was the
that's right, she was
vice chair.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, we have to have a meeting with the housing
Oh,
authority,
that's right, because that's voted on by all of us.
but the vice chair would become acting chair until that time. If there's anything.
I'm the chair.
Michael's the chair.
You're the chair, well, you made the chair, yeah.
Yeah, so we're okay on that.
So we'll worry about that next time we have a housing meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we need a motion on those volunteer appointments.
Do we need a motion? I think normally you just appoint them, but if you want one. I think
Well-
they're appointed by the mayor.
Yeah, it is an agendized item, so.
But it's not an action item as far as like, recommend, I mean, do we need a
Right.
motion on this? Because I think the mayor, that's part of his protocol.
You don't need a motion. The mayor has the authority to appoint the committees. If the mayor wants to have a motion, he certainly can, but it's not necessary.
So I'll accept those volunteer before people change their mind. Okay. And 14D, the review and prioritization of items on our future agenda list. We have a staff report from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This one is pretty heavy and it's got a lot of meat to it. And so this was long overdue. As you can see in the staff report, we've had a continuation of a number of future agenda items that have been carried over for months. What we didn't include here were the future agenda items that were accomplished. And so that was not something that we looked at, but we have had some success in moving forward on previous agenda items and getting them squared away. So with that being said, there are a list of 13 future agenda items that are noted. I've listed them. I won't go through them and state them, but they're included in the staff report. In addition to what's included on the 13, there was another item that was provided, or the council provided direction to my office to look at, to review and analyze the opportunity for having in-house city attorney function. That should be added to the future agenda list as number 14 is something that it's obviously not going to fall off from my perspective, but from the perspective of the future agenda items that the council should expect, that is something that the council should expect to see in the future. With that being said, there are some items that have some significant updates that are valuable not only to the council but also to the community. On item number 1, there was a discussion, I don't remember when it was, but there was a discussion about housing investment opportunities and vacant city-owned infill property. We are nearing the point where we can bring forward a list of city-owned properties that we would recommend that the city surplus and get out on the market after going through the right procedures with state law. We are at a point after that we would be able to potentially put those out on the market and allow developers or other interested parties to move forward on purchasing that property. So in this instance, we're probably maybe a month away from having that from the council to weigh in on and have some discussion on. Our ability to hold some of these city-owned properties for future city use is limited with new state laws, and so we would recommend that when we have that discussion, that we really have that conversation then, which is scheduled to be about a month off. So we are nearing the completion of getting that to council in September. My recommendation on that is to bring forward that list of city-owned properties and having the council weigh in at that time to see if there's anything that the council desires from that discussion at that meeting. I did note the departments that are involved with that. We've had this ongoing. We've been working on this in partnership with the Attorney's Office for the last couple of months. The departments that are involved with that are Public Works, Community Development, the Finance Department, the Attorney's Office, City Manager's Office, Police and Fire. We do have a number of city-owned city properties. The second item on the list is the broadcasting of city council meetings. I believe this has been on there for probably over a year now. We began to research the various systems for broadcasting city council meetings. Staff visited multiple cities, and I had a chance to go out with the city clerk's office as well as IT to visit a number of cities. We got a pretty overall view of how cities have been able to utilize their PEG funding, and based on those visits, we actually had some discussions about the initial concept was probably limiting in and of itself. So based on the discussions that we've had with staff, we do recommend having a work study to talk about two key items that are listed in the staff report. One, and they are costs, significant costs that are associated with that. The infrastructure related to fiber connectivity as needed to transmit video online. That conversation primarily revolves around getting fiber connectivity from this building back to City Hall, where we would have the essentially control room housed to manage and oversee the flow of the meeting. In addition to that, there are some opportunities with connecting fiber for some of our other city-owned properties, including Covell, the Simpson Center, and other locations. So we do need to have a conversation about what makes the most sense with that aspect. The second component of that requires some council direction is whether the council prefers to have just a video system that is we'll call it a more advanced version of the current video system that we have, and we don't make any improvements to the rest of the council chambers, including the dais or any of the other facilities that we have here. So the question really revolves around whether we want to create a council chambers that's more conducive to having public participation and a better system to allow for discussions with the public, discussions with city management, and discussion with the city council. So that is a broader conversation that we would need to have some time set aside to have that conversation with council. The recommendation from the city manager's office is to keep that on the list, and we should have a work study developed so that we can fine-tune what those components of those items and what they would be. We're recommending that we have a work study scheduled for October or November to go over those items.
2020 or 2021?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's supposed to be for this year. That's a typo.
Thank you.
And not over a year from now. I'm talking a couple months from now. The departments that are involved with that, IT, the clerk's office, city manager's office, and public works. We would also obviously want to make sure that the integration of the agenda management system converts easily to whatever system that we have, whether it be council members that are on the dais that have a digital readout monitor. I'm sure those that are part of WR-COG's meetings can understand the system that they have. So we'd want to have integration with that so that it's seamless and council members don't have to lug around laptops or iPads, and it's just built into whatever system that we have. So we'd want to include that in the conversation. Item number 3, and I want to preface that I suggested that we have some items that are removed from the list or just discussed removing from the list. That's really there to facilitate conversation with the council and really have a conversation about, if we look at all these 14 items, what do we prioritize as being the top items and which items are slated more towards the bottom, so that we can have a comprehensive discussion about what are the items that are most of value to the council. So item number 3, vagrancy and panhandling laws. We don't have anything to report on that. The recommendation from my office is to discuss removing that from the list, or discuss what the council's priorities are with respect to that item and what the council intends to accomplish with that item on the future agenda list.
Quick question.
Yes.
Do you prefer to go through all of the whole list and then come back for a discussion, or do you want to take them as we come?
I'd like to just provide the overview and then really allow the council to chime in on that after we're all done with that. Item number 4, the investment portfolio audit. We don't have anything to report on this. In terms of the staff, the recommendation from our office is to have the council discuss what the overall goal is with the treasurer function and whether any recommendations have come from the Investment Oversight Committee. The departments involved, obviously Finance, City Manager's Office, the Treasurer, and the Attorney's Office. Item number 5, the Council Protocols. The Council Ad Hoc Committee has met on this item. I don't know how many times, but they have met. The committee should provide an update on the work thus far. The recommendation is to have the committee provide an update on the work thus far. Item number 6, street vendor permit regulations and enforcement. We currently do not have anything to report on this. Again, this is a recommendation to discuss what the council intends to accomplish with this and prioritize this item. Animal control regulations for businesses. We do not have anything to report on this. We do recommend that the council have a discussion on prioritizing this item and where it falls within the list. Item number 8, solar feasibility. Earlier this year, staff began conversations with a group that offered an assessment of the city's current energy usage and the opportunities to maximize energy efficiencies to implement various systems, including solar within city facilities. The initial assessment has been conducted, and staff will be reviewing the proposal. We actually reviewed it yesterday, and we will be talking about the opportunities with follow-up with the vendor, and then at that point we will bring an item to the council to talk about whether the council would like to move forward on those items. I can state that the use or the implementation of solar would require some sort of financing mechanism. It would be a capital investment, so it really comes down to options that we've preliminarily discussed that we would like to provide to the council in terms of what that cost would be, as well as other improvements across the agency that would result in a net reduction in energy usage, thereby resulting in lower costs for the city of Hemet. So we're a little bit a ways away from bringing this forward to the council. We recommend that we do keep this on the list and we bring forward this to the council. We would like to have a work study conducted by the first quarter of 2021. That would allow us the opportunity to go through with the consultant, fine-tune the options that are there, and do some other items that include a deeper a deeper audit of our energy usage to get an idea of what those other opportunities are. There may be some council action that is required before then, but that's the calendar that we've provided so far. On number 9, consider local banking options. Staff will need to develop an RFP or RFQ and then advertise and solicit proposals. Our recommendation is to keep this on the list. We will develop the RFP by the end of this year, and our recommendation is to bring the council in 2021, depending on how that RFP, RFQ comes back for the city of Hemet. The departments involved with that obviously include finance. On number 10, the allocation for fire department overtime for Measure U. Staff will bring forward year-end numbers for fiscal year 1920 near the month of October. Whatever allocation of Measure U that is not utilized will remain in Measure U fund balance. So our recommendation is to keep on the list until the year-end numbers are brought to council, and that's when we'll have a better idea of what the expenditures actually were for fiscal year 1920, as well as what the actual revenues were, obviously unaudited, for fiscal year 1920. The timing of this one is we recommend having this conversation near October 2020 so that we can have those true-up numbers squared away for the council. The review of Resolution 4703, our recommendation is to keep this on the list. Resolution 4703 and 4731 should be reviewed and discussed by the mayor and the council. This conversation should also include a discussion on our successes, challenges, and what we can reasonably accomplish within the budget's constraints. we need to have a discussion that evaluates what the program initially set out to achieve and what we've been able to accomplish. So we should also be honest with the public about our capacities, funding limitations, and how we can reasonably move forward. This should be coordinated around the same time we discuss fiscal year 19-20 year-end numbers to align our budgets as well as a better understanding of the financial impacts of COVID-19 as best as we can understand for the impacts for fiscal year 19-20. An additional option is to coordinate this discussion with strategic planning discussions set to resume later this year. I should note that I have informed the council that our facilitator, due to COVID-19 in the firm that he's associated with, have put a pause on in-person facilitations of strategic planning. Our hope is that as COVID-19 continues to move through, some of these restrictions are lessened not only by other employers, but also by whether it's the county public health agency or the state, so that we can really have a robust conversation with members of the public and other members that would be inclined to attend this discussion without being limited in the numbers of people that can be confined or together at one given time. Our recommendation is to have this conversation around the same time as number 10. If we want to schedule it with the strategic planning, that would put us at fourth quarter 2020 or first quarter 2021, and that's really what I want to get input from the council on. On item number 12, review of penalties for fireworks and the Hammond Municipal Code. The staff should bring information about enforcement activities, arrests, citations, numbers of fires that we had, calls for service, and other pertinent information with respect to what we saw on the 4th of July just about a month ago. Across the region, there appeared to be significant increases in illegal fireworks activities. The discussion should really revolve around planned activities for 2021, including what we can do to revisit the enforcement actions, citations that are embodied in the municipal code. We should time this to have a conversation around the beginning of 2021 to put us in a position so that for 4th of July 2021, we'll have the ability to retune and refine whatever we set out to accomplish based on the direction provided by the council. The departments that are involved there include the police department, fire department, attorney's office, as well as the city manager's office. Item number 13, the 2020 Christmas parade route. This was recently added. I have nothing to report on this. We should have a conversation about whether a parade will be viable given the current COVID situation. We should have a conversation about alternatives to the parade if COVID continues to be problematic. Now, that's not to say that things won't change by December, but we should just be prepared to talk about what happens in the event that these types of events are not allowed and large congregations of individuals are not allowed moving forward. We should have this conversation next month with the council because it is coming very close. Item number, with that, we have Public Works, the City Manager's Office, the Police Department, the Fire Department, and Engineering that are involved with that. On item number 14, the City Attorney function, I did mention that the council did provide direction during the budget discussions to provide some opportunities and some evaluations for the City Council to look at. The council should prioritize this item amongst the rest of the items and add to a future agenda item list if it is a top priority. That includes the City Manager's Office, Finance Department, Attorney's Office, as well as HR. So, given the significant number of agenda items, council should provide clear direction on the items they wish to continue and move forward on. So it should be noted that due to the significant number of items on the list, the future agenda item list has been difficult to manage and difficult to really make a substantive impact on. So while the list is updated as items come off, the list at this point is far too large to make meaningful progress on some of the larger projects. If council wishes to prioritize and make the list much smaller, we could allocate all resources available to managing a few and add the others as capacity is made available. And then finally, I should note that this is just based on the last council meeting. As items do come up in council discussions, the council does have the option to add items to the list. So this is just a snapshot in time. This doesn't say anything about what the council may choose to add, whether it be later on tonight, whether it be at the next council meeting, or whether it be at council meetings in September, October, or November. So with that, that includes the staff report on this item. Mayor, happy to answer any questions or receive direction from the council.
Okay, any questions of city manager?
Comments. First of all, this is the only way, as an elected official, that is not the mayor, for us to put anything on future agenda items. So I feel that our staff is trying to take away our ability to do our job. All of these items were put on here 5-0, besides item number 11 and item 14. We haven't voted on those yet. They're not even in our minutes. So if we need to vote on them, then we need to do it right now. And maybe we should start with that to make it right.
Well, I think item 14 that he's added here was...
We've talked about it, but we have not voted as a future agenda item.
But
I have all the minutes.
we gave direction to staff to address that.
All future agenda items are all added by a council vote. We made that a while back.
Okay.
But if you want to make them part of this discussion, we probably should start there. You want me to make a motion? I'll move to add the review of resolution 4703 and the city attorney function to our future agenda item list.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilor Meyer?
Yes.
Councilor Percival?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Krupa? Yes. Mayor Brown?
Yes. Passes unanimously. Okay, so all of these items that are reflected in the staff report are all on the future agenda items.
I have other ones to talk about, but I'll wait, and if you're going to go down one by one, however you're going.
Well, I was just going to make a suggestion, maybe in the interest of time, that there's several of them on here where there's been a recommendation to remove. So would you prefer to start with those items?
Do you want to fight? Yeah. Let's start with them.
Or do you want to, what's your preference? I don't care either way. We can go numerically in order.
Okay, let's go to the removing first, because the other ones, if we're not going to remove them, we're not going to remove them.
Okay.
So first one is vagrancy and panhandling laws. So we are going to discuss items that are good for the council or good for the people. Because if you're talking to my elderly neighbors that are shopping every day, this would be a high priority item and an easier one to fix. If you do some research, there are sit and lie laws up in Chico that have passed and are enforced. And from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., you're not allowed to sit around businesses. These are simple things that we can just call Chico and let's get a copy of what they have. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we're not the only one with this problem. And so these types of little things are little, but to the people, they're huge.
And I would agree with that. Just on number 3, I mean, just to have an update, whether it's from legal or the police chief, on what the current laws are that we could enact, what we could enforce, and
Now, what about those cities that have the no panhandling signs around, and it's code?
signs. I love
Yeah,
those.
yeah, and they're just code, and it's ordinance. It's a city ordinance. So these are simple, and I know these are simple things. Delegate them.
Upfront and personal.
Right.
Well, I think, just having it on a future agenda, just a status report of what is the current law, what's our local ordinance, what are the state ordinances, and this would obviously need some city attorney input on this because many years ago, vagrancy laws and loitering laws were deemed unconstitutional. So I'd be very interested to see if Chico has a law in effect that essentially
Prohibits the
is-
time, the
yeah.
time frame. Yeah.
I'd be very interested to see how that passes the constitutional test. I'm all in favor of doing, I agree wholeheartedly that these are biggies to our community members, and there are things that inhibit people's desire to go visit stores or when they can go visit. So
And I'd add number 6 into that, because there's nothing that irritates me more than seeing all these damn
Absolutely.
darn, these pop-ups. Strike those words, seeing all these pop-ups around.
Well,
There's got
I
to be
think
some regulation.
maybe would it be reasonable to blend those two into one? Because I think
They're different, but
they're
each
different, but
project.
I think they're dealing with the same kind of an issue. It's quality of life issues, and that's what our ROCKS team is all about, is quality of life issues. So I think it would be reasonable to blend those, and that would achieve one thing of shortening the list, and it would address things that are important.
So I think you bring up some good points. I actually see a nexus between Resolution 4703 as well as item number 3 as well as item number 6. If we talk about what Resolution 4703 was originally intended to do, I think we need to have a conversation about what are the elements that are tied to these items that you've identified and how that formulates and gets captured into what we expect Measure U to look like. So if there are programmatic concepts that should be involved in that conversation, I think that is the right time to include it there. That's what makes sense to me. Would be happy to see what the council thinks
I
about
understand
that.
what you're saying, but we lose it and we lose that title, and same with our street vendors. And it's going to get lost. I mean, the reason that we voted 5-0 is because this was important to us.
What I'm suggesting is some sort of other discussion, whether it be quality of life, because that's really what you're talking about here. It's quality of life issues. And I think that can be embodied with Resolution 4703. So if we were to take a stab at saying something like reviewing Resolution 4703 and quality of life items such as panhandling and the other items that you referenced, I think that's the key nexus, because
It still would be on here, so then it's pointless, is my point. Because here's the thing, we added these, and it was a 5-0 vote. You know what we've also done? We have actually gone back several times, and we've removed items because we've changed direction. So I feel that it is, I don't know if I want to go as far as say disrespectful, but this is what we get to do. This is one of our jobs. And so if we are adding these to a list, that's how important they are to us. However you want to put them on your list, you can. But these we wanted to be dealt with specifically.
So, Councilmember, what I'm saying is, typically when you've added these agenda items, there is no direction that's been provided in terms of what it is that the council would like. So what I am gathering now is the input of what the council would like, because when you can't agendize a future item and then not have a discussion in open session without it being agendized. What we have done now is we've agendized these items as future agenda list items to talk about. And so that's really what I see the council doing right now.
Well, what I see on here is discuss removing from the list. So I think it's rude.
The
If I
intention is
could,
not
real
to be
quick.
rude, but I can understand if you feel that way.
If I could, I understand where you're going with what you're saying. It's to have the discussion on maybe getting some direction on some of these items on where to take it. I totally know what you're saying, because it is. Because what Councilmember Meyer said is that the council put these on there, and the council provides direction to staff and sets the priority of the city based on the citizens of the city. And so I can, since it was an agendized item, I can actually bring it up. Page 18 of 230, well, no, page 24 of 1134 is the, it's in the CAFR report, and it's actually the organizational chart. And if you look at it, it's got the citizens at the top, and then the council under the citizens, and then city staff under us. And so I think the point being is that our constituents have priorities, and we see priorities because we live in the community, so we see what's going on day to day, and they become priorities for the council. And one of the things that sets me apart on these is that when I look at all of these future agenda items that have been on here for over a year and for months and months and months, it tells me that, especially as Councilmember Meyer stated, these were all put on here on a 5-0 vote. So you've got a unanimous council saying these are a priority, and when they sit here, it just shows not just to us, but it shows to the citizens who are on the top of the list that city staff doesn't make any of their priorities a priority. And so it creates a thing of what's going on with the city of Hemet, and why doesn't the city of Hemet get any of this stuff done? Because we're putting this on there, we're listening to what they're telling us, and we're making these a priority for us and for them to get it addressed, and it's not being addressed by city staff. So by you putting this on here, it gives us the opportunity to discuss and where that focus should go, and putting forth the effort of staff to make sure that some of these things get cleared off. Now, I think you're right on the resolution, because I made a big point about that before the budget was passed at a 3-2 vote. And there needs to be more discussion, because I don't think staff, for one, is following the resolution that we signed on to, and I think there's more room for allocation of funding to happen to help address some of these items that are on here.
Councilmember, there's a lot to what you said. I think part of the issue is the city has struggled and not had any strategic planning discussions outside of what we started before COVID. And I think that's really one of the challenges that the city has experienced. It's unable to prioritize what is the top priority, essentially. And so based on what the council discussions are, I get an idea of what they are, but in terms of sitting down with a facilitator and really providing that information and then embodying that in a document and having the staff stick to that and actually accomplish it, that's really what the city has been missing. I've been in the permanent city manager seat for 8 months now, so I know that some of these items have been there for longer than a year because I saw them before I got in this seat. And I'm not going to disparage any previous city managers, but there's a reason why they've stayed on there. I can't recall in the last couple of years that I've been here where the council's had a robust conversation about what the council intends to get with the future agenda items. Essentially what I see from in this seat is we have a future agenda item and then there's no follow-up. There's nothing about what the council direction is. There's nothing about what the council intends to accomplish. It's merely a lofty concept. And so here, I agree with you 1,000%. Here is the opportunity for the council to weigh in on what those expectations are to provide that clear direction, because without clear direction, we're left with twiddling our thumbs on what that specific item is. So we talked about Chico, we talked about some of these other items. We've never had that conversation, and we've never had what the council is intending to accomplish with that. So I can appreciate what you brought up, Councilmember.
I think that it needs to say discussion next time and not you giving a recommendation to delete what we put on by vote. It shouldn't say that. If you want to discuss these things, it should just say discussion, if you need to have direction on things.
So I am okay with taking the anger from you, Councilmember. I'm okay with that.
It's not my anger. It is my place as an elected official to vote, and we voted 5-0, and then you are coming back and saying you recommend we take that off. I think that you are out of line for doing it. Now, I need you to hear something, and I've said this to you before. You have done and accomplished so much, and even as frustrated as I am of the things that are on here, I have not been writing you about them because we know that you're working. So don't feel that pressure because the list is big. I feel like we go through these things and we check them off regularly. And we add and we still continue to make progress. So don't feel like that. You are making progress.
And like I said, I'll take that. I don't want you to think that I don't hear what you're saying. I do, and I'll take that. I'll own that.
Well, if I could just interject, just looking at the sentence that says recommended action is provide direction to staff. I think that's exactly what we're doing. Councilmember Meyer is phrasing it a different way, but I hear what she's saying. I hear the frustration.
I'm reading the report.
Yeah.
She reads it too. Look,
Yeah,
she read it.
and I think, for me, it's more semantics. I didn't take it the same way that staff is intending or implying that they're taking anything away from us. I can understand that and appreciate that interpretation, but my focus is on trying to give some prioritization and direction to staff on how to stack these things. I'm not necessarily saying that anything needs to come off, but we need to, as ourselves, establish some priority for staff, because we know that every council meeting has agenda items that, for lack of a better term, are required operational things that we have to take action on for things to get done. So it could be, capital improvements, or it could be approving contracts, or whatever it might be. So every agenda is going to have items that are routine business. So council needs direction from us on saying, okay, well, where can we insert these things that we want to get done, and what priority do they have? So that's kind of how.
It can't depend on council majority either, because a lot of these have depended on that. And that's not fair either. That's why you don't read it the same as me, because your items get done. Remember the last one? It was 2 weeks.
Well, I think what we need to do tonight is to go through this list, if we can, and try to establish some prioritization. And I'm not advocating that we take anything off. I'm just saying that we need to move things forward, but we need to decide, okay, this item is an A priority, and this is a B priority, and this is a C, because they can't all be A.
I understand what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying, when we get the agenda, it's the routine operational issues that we have to deal with. But there's a lot of stuff that we deal with on these agendas that we have to make, that we have discussion and vote on and allocate funding for, that are staff priorities. So here's a recommendation to you, and the other council members can agree or disagree, but when we have a list, or when we come up with a new future agenda item at your E-team meetings, it should be, okay, the council voted 5-0 or the council voted 4-0 that this is a priority, and this falls under your department, or this falls under your department. What are we going to do to make it happen? And how are we going to move forward to get this now moving forward on an agenda item now, and have a staff report to get what the council voted on?
And with all due respect, council member, without having the direction on what it is that they want, we would just be merely guessing of what it is the council
The whole
wants.
point of the vote, though, is we talk about it.
But that's the thing, and if I could make a recommendation, that we take these, the vagrancy, panhandling, where's the next one down there? That street vendor regulations, enforcement, even the fireworks, put them on a work study so that we can have that discussion of where do we want to go on, what is the current legal status from both legal and PE, or what are we currently doing, and what can we do, and then we'll discuss it, and then it could come back as a staff recommendation and staff report, because we don't know where we stand. I don't know the current laws on panhandling or animal control for businesses or any of these things. So until we have that discussion, and not as an action item, but as a discussion item, we may decide we can't do anything about it. We may, we may be hamstrung.
That's a reasonable approach.
So with that being said, and if we were to take that approach, if you look at all of these items, which would you characterize as being the ones that the council prefers to hear first?
And you got to look at, you were going to work on a rubric, but there's some that are easy, there's some that are more global, there's some that are financial and more important, so they're all different, right? So you have to think also with your staff time. Is it easier to, just like the the fire thing that we passed last time. It was on for months. It was on for over 6 months, and all we had to do was print it out. And so those are like, even the vagrancy laws, just find out, somebody just needs to do it.
So again, I go back to the question of, if that is the number one item, we can certainly put all hands on deck on addressing that specific one.
But that's the point. It doesn't take all hands. It's just delegation. Somebody needs to look this up.
And the reason I bring this up is because, council members, we know the challenges that we have, for instance, in community development, with the number of applicants that we have, with the number of developers that are interested in the city. So, with that being said, I would say that I can't allocate my community development staff to doing the items that reference community development here, because then that pulls them away from the development activity and responding to developers and doing the work that they need to build the economy. So if the council would like for us to do that, we're more than happy to do that. But if you state that, my response is, well, then something's going to have to give, because I can't have my staff working on two separate things at the same time.
Well, that's a shame.
Can I have a recommendation as we're going through here? Then, I mean, take two of them. Take vagrancy panhandling laws and street vendor permit regulations, and just
And the animal one, they kind of all go together.
and just
I
give
can
us
do a report on that.
where we legally stand right now, what's in our municipal code, what can we do without incurring the wrath of the Supreme Court.
Well, and I think that's what's
And just have a work study on it.
and what's important about that too is that all falls under quality of life.
It does.
And why was Measure U passed in the first place? For quality of life issues, and these all deal with that.
Might even add fireworks to that one, because my estimation,
Well,
the only thing we need.
Well, and fireworks have been an issue ever since I've been on council.
Because we talked about it in 2018, it was actually on here. I went
And it
through
got worse this year because, well, you know, the governor said no fireworks.
I think
So everybody else said, yeah, whatever.
Outside things on that, but we can increase the amount of penalty.
And for the animal
Council
one,
members, yeah, I can take all of those. I won't say it's an easy job, because there's a number of laws that we have to go through, but we can take all of those items, show you what we have in place, what the existing law is, and what other people are doing that you're not, and give you some idea of how feasible that is, whether it's legal or not, and we can list all of those things out.
Probably get rid of 4 of them in one meeting.
The one thing I'd like some direction on is, I'm not sure what you mean by animal control laws for business.
so there are several businesses that have had tenants who abused their privileges and raised animals and left them unattended overnight in locked buildings, and then it ended up destroying businesses. And so these business owners have no protection. Or the property owner, right? The property owner doesn't have the protection or any kind of way to leverage. I don't know. I see that's the legal part that I don't know, but.
That might be some sort of a code enforcement action.
Or similar to the street vendors, though.
Something on the
Yeah.
books that deals with that, then
Mhm.
we need to know that, and we just maybe get it out on social media that these are the rules and the regs may already be there.
If I might, let me try something here. It may not go anywhere, but let me see. Just looking at the staff report, we have 13 items, and I know we've got 14 now, but I'm just looking at this list. If we took item 3, vagrancy and panhandling, and item 6 and 7, the street vendor and the animal control, and item 12, the fireworks, and combined all of those and asked the city attorney to review current status and look at what other jurisdictions are doing that are similar to our community, and have a study session on all of those items. So we know where we stand now, what's possible, and give direction to staff on where we would like to go. Would that be reasonable?
Yeah, and like on your list, you could, move it down to city attorney section. I mean, it's been assigned, so that it can stay on our list, but then we know it's assigned and this is the progress, and he can do his updates whenever he updates.
That,
How much time do you think you need to put something together?
I could have it back to you in a month.
so maybe we can schedule a work study in a month for that.
So, I'd first off like to thank Eric for